Welcome back to the Explainer. You know, we're always hearing about the black box of modern AI, right? Well, today we're cracking it wide open. We're going to do a deep dive into the vision transformer, specifically the ViT-Base model. If you've ever wondered how a machine takes a messy, raw image and mathematically transforms it into a confident, accurate classification, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to trace the data flow step by step, literally following the math from raw pixels to the final output. Okay, so here's our roadmap. We've got a strict 5-step assembly line to get through. We're going from spatial decomposition to projection, sequencing, the actual transformer encoder, and finally the classification itself. It's a really fascinating progression, so let's just jump right into step 1. Step 1, spatial image decomposition. This is where the physical, tangible, raw material actually enters the system. Because before an AI can understand an image, it has to digest it. So, our standard input is a 224 by 224 pixel image, with the standard 3 color channels for red, green, and blue. But here's the thing. A transformer doesn't look at the whole picture at once the way human eyes do. Instead, it mathematically slices the image into a 14 by 14 grid. That gives us exactly 196 individual square patches. It's kind of like taking a photograph and cutting it perfectly into a 196-piece jigsaw puzzle. And this is absolutely critical, because it lays the groundwork for our data matrix. The transformer needs a sequence of items to process, and these little patches are items. Now, look at what happens next. This is the flattening step. Take one of those tiny puzzle pieces we just cut out, a 3D color cube that's 16 pixels wide, 16 pixels high, and 3 color channels deep. The network can't process 3D cubes. It needs a flat list of numbers, so we multiply those dimensions together. 16 times 16 is 256, and 256 times 3 gives us exactly 768. We unroll that cube into a massive 768-component raw vector, and every single one of our 196 patches goes through this exact same transformation. All right, moving on to step 2, linear projection and abstraction. Let's see how we build the bridge from physical pixels to machine-readable concepts. We have our raw vectors, but honestly, raw pixels are noisy and not incredibly useful for high-level reasoning. To solve this, we don't actually keep those raw pixel vectors. Instead, we run them through something called a learnable linear projection. Think of this as a highly sophisticated mathematical filter that the model optimizes over time. It takes our raw 768 pixel values, multiplies them, and transforms them into an entirely new set of 768 numbers. We call this new vector an embedding. The raw visual data is completely discarded and replaced by this abstract embedding where the dimension d equals 768. We've successfully morphed simple light intensities into pure mathematical abstraction that the model can actually think with. Which brings us to step 3, sequencing. Before we fire out the engine room of the transformer, we need to organize our sequence and introduce the main characters. We have 196 abstract vectors, but we are missing 2 vital pieces of the puzzle. First up, we introduce the CLS token, which stands for classification token. This is a learnable vector, and it strictly maintains our dimension of 768. It actually starts out completely blank, just randomly initialized, and we glue it, or concatenate it, right to the very front of our patch sequence. It's essentially an empty container we're sending into the network alongside our image data. Definitely keep this token in mind because it is the true star of the show. But wait, we've got a major problem. By chopping the image into patches and flattening them out into a sequence, we completely wrecked the spatial structure of the original image. The model has absolutely no clue if a patch came from the top left sky or the bottom right grass. So we immediately follow up with positional encoding. This is a unique mathematical signature injected into each embedding. Think of it like assigning GPS coordinates. It gives the model its spatial awareness back, allowing it to understand exactly where each patch belongs in that original 14 by 14 grid. And the crucial point here is that this positional data is carefully added rather than concatenated. If we just tacked it onto the end of our vectors, our dimension would swell way past 768, and that would break the strict architecture of the network. By mathematically adding the positional values directly into the existing 768 numbers, we perfectly preserve our exact dimensionality. The meaning of the visual data and the location data are just beautifully fused together in a single, perfectly sized package. Let's pause a second and track our dimensions. It's a great mental progress bar of how our initial physical image has evolved. We started at the top with a 224 by 224 by 3 image. We chopped it into 196 patch vectors. Then, we added our special CLS token to the front. So 196 plus 1 gives us 197 vectors total. And since every single vector is exactly 768 dimensions deep, our final assembled payload is a matrix sized perfectly at 197 by 768. Okay, step 4, the transformer encoder in action. Our assembled sequence is fully prepped, and we are finally entering the core engine of the model. This is where the magic of the vision transformer actually happens. The exact moment this entire 1970 by 768 matrix hits the self-attention layers, the isolation ends. Up until now, each patch only knew about itself. But here in the encoder, the elements begin to interact. Through some pretty heavy matrix multiplication, every single vector compares itself to every other vector in the sequence. It's figuring out which parts of the image are relevant to each other. For example, a patch showing a dog's ear is going to strongly attend to a patch showing a dog's nose. And this concept brilliantly captures the dynamic at play here. The CLS token acts like a class delegate. Remember that blank token we stuck at the front? Well, through self-attention, it acts exactly like a class representative. It actively collects information from the other 196 student patches. As the matrix moves deeper into the network, layer by layer, the students are talking amongst themselves, but the delegate is listening to everyone. It's constantly updating its own 768 numbers to build a global summary of the entire image. Finally, step 5, classification and final result. We've reached the very end of the assembly line where the ultimate verdict is generated. The matrix has passed through all the layers. But right here, we hit a structural twist that honestly confuses a lot of people. When all the processing is done and the data exits the transformer block, we literally completely ignore the 196 image patches. Why on earth would we do that? We just spent all this time and computational power enriching them, so why throw them in the trash? Take a second and think about the architecture we just built. The answer is super simple and highly efficient. The delegate already has all the required knowledge. Because the CLS token has been continuously absorbing this global, high-level understanding from every single patch, it now contains the core essence of the entire image, all compressed into that single 768-dimension vector. So step 1, we drop the 196 patches. Step 2, we isolate that final highly educated CLS vector. And step 3, we pass only that single vector into the MLP or multi-layer perception head. This simple neural network at the very end looks at the summary and confidently outputs the final prediction. Yep, this is a dog, or this is a car. It's truly mind-blowing when you break it down like this. We just watched raw, chaotic pixels get systematically converted into a confident prediction using nothing but a strict, elegant pipeline of linear algebra and attention. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question. How many other AI black boxes out there are operating on simple chronological mathematical steps just waiting to be mapped out? The intelligence isn't magic, it's architecture. Keep looking for the structure in the data, and I'll see you in the next explainer.